Hi, everybody. Um, Thanks for having me here in Berlin. It's really fantastic. I think it's a real sign of what a welcoming, open city this is. When you have a design event like this, and the medium language is English, so it's really amazing for me because obviously I don't speak any German. So I thought I'll try something a little bit different tonight. I'm sure most of us have been to many design conferences, all kinds of different talks where people show their folios and stuff. I'm going to borrow a little bit from Julia Pott, which is an animation director from the UK that I really like and admire. And at her last talk at F5, she simply said, most of my work you can find online. So I'm not going to show a lot of it and go into detail. But I thought I'll share a little bit of what makes me me, how I approach my life and my work, and how I'll call it offering a slightly different approach to how I see life and work as a creative person. And maybe you can take a thing or two from it. So I'm an art director, I'm an illustrator, I'm a designer, and as you can see, I'm not a male, I'm not white. So in this world of motion design and animation, I'm a minority. And part of the story that I'm sharing here tonight is how being a minority and doing this for 14 years now has shaped how I see things, and hopefully hopefully you'll find one or two useful things from my presentation tonight. So we'll start off with an origin story, just like anything else. I am an Australian, Indonesian, Chinese woman. This is a very simplified diagram of my origin story. So I was born in Indonesia, which is this yellow dot over here. At the age of 14, I moved to Singapore, which is this blue dot over here, to attend high school all by myself. I left my family at the age of 14 and a half. And after studying in Singapore for 4 years and working for a year, I moved to Australia at the age of 20 to Melbourne, which is this red dot over here. And after Melbourne, I lived in Sydney for a little bit. And then eventually I moved to London in 2008. And you can see my age over there. By the way, I'm 36, so it gives you a slight time scale. Not embarrassed to say my age. So I grew up poor. We didn't have a lot of money. I come from a lower middle class family. I grew up on a street with open sewerage, and until today, my parents still live there. I still see them at least once a year. But fortunately for me, even though they didn't spend any money on birthday presents or new dresses, they never scrimped on books. So this was during the era of this famous dictator, Suharto. For some reason at that time, Indonesia had really good relationship with European and American countries, and imported goods such as these beautiful storybooks was really easily available. So these pictures over here on your right are done by a Belgian artist called Marcel Marlier, and he's really, really fantastic. I think some of you might know his work. His Martin series about this little girl called Martin, and she goes through different types of adventure, hanging out with her brother, helping a sick bird recover. And the picture on the left is from one of my favorite books as a child that I still have until now. It's 101 Different Animal Stories, written by Anne-Marie Dalmace. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, and illustrated by an Italian illustrator called Van Benvenuti. So this is where I come from. This is my earliest exposure to art, design, and illustration. And eventually I also came across these beautiful illustrations by an English watercolorist who compiled a series of folk stories, fairy tales, and she illustrated them herself. And her name is Hilda Boswell. And when you see my work, you see influences, whether it's personal work or paid work, you will see influences of these things, of things that make you feel warm and happy and safe and secure. Animals, plants, fairies, a lot of details, and a lot of magical creatures and whimsical things. Whimsical is, I guess, one way you can sort of describe my stuff. The next thing is I can't sit still. This is just a quick cross-section of paid work that I've done over the years. As you can see, there's not really one style, really. I just really enjoy experimenting in different things, and every brief comes with their own demands and specifications. And yeah, from vector to watercolor to something that is a bit more collage-y, to more vector, character-based or not character-based, and something that's a bit infographic-y. I enjoy all these things. They all have their own, pleasure in creating. This is another example of me not being able to sit still. So recently my friend Anna Benner, you here? She invited me to participate in this Instagram-based exercise of 100 days of something. So the challenge is you do 100 days of whatever it is, whether it's baking or painting or whatever. And for me, I chose to... Awesome. Thank you. It's the audio.
Yeah. Do you need this?
No. Yeah, we can plug it off. Woohoo! Give it up to the Aussie guy who's a technician. So I decided to choose cakes and desserts because I love sweet things. I love eating them. I love drawing them. I love looking at them. And I decided to do each one as well as how they would be if they're a person. So this rocky road is a pirate. These 3 little mochi balls are 3 little cute babies. That's key lime pie that my husband makes, still one of the best key lime pies I've ever had in my life. These are pineapple tarts, really, really popular snack in Southeast Asia. And she's a twirling girl with a twirling skirt. And this project actually brought me a lot of joy. I mean, I don't make a single cent out of it, but what happens on Instagram is people of different walks of life connect over this 100 days hashtag. So in my case, I started connecting with a girl who bakes amazing cakes at a cafe near my place in London. Her name is Genevieve. And I did one of her cakes, which is this, if you can see, 4th from the top and 3rd from the left is a little picture of a girl with a mohawk and a guitar. The cake is a pineapple and carrot cake. And somehow that made someone really like this idea. Another baker from South Africa got inspired by that, so she started to bake her own version of that pineapple cake, and then she posed herself in that position. She did her hair and she held a guitar, she posed herself holding the cake and sent it to me and posted on Instagram. And I tell you, when that day happened, I was jumping up and down on my bed. It was like one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. It's so satisfying creatively. I don't make a single cent out of it, but I can't describe it any better than this pure joy of connecting with people who also enjoy the same stuff that you do. And it was just really amazing. I never thought I would get to connect with people that way and make someone's day in that way. So that's really rewarding for me. These are some of my personal work. Again, not one style. There's different types of stuff there. There's watercolor and digital painting of cute animals, and these 4 are a series of 4 cities in 4 seasons. I haven't done Berlin yet. Maybe I should do Berlin next time. One of the things I really like also is having my stuff on merchandise, but rather than sourcing out manufacturing and supply myself, I decided to join Society 6, and again, very, very narrow profit margin, but it's really satisfying to have your stuff on objects that you can touch and hold and wear, because most of the things we do as motion designers or digital designers live in the pixel land. They're not real. So this makes it tangible, and it's just really satisfying. So I get asked a lot about what my training is and how does that contribute to my skill as an art director. And the basic training basically is just really reinforcing that connection between your brain, your eye, and your hand, i.e. you train yourself so that you get better and better at expressing what you have in your head, and you get better and better at visualizing or drawing out things that you observe and you see. So my basic training started when I was in high school in Singapore. So growing up from a poor family, I somehow got a scholarship to study high school in Singapore. And part of the education system there is you're allowed to choose a specific major in your 2 final years of high school. So when you're 17 and 18. I joined the supposedly prestigious art elective program, which has been sold as a way to get people to skip foundation year in art schools and design schools, because it teaches you all these things that foundation year in a college or university would do, like how do you visually analyze a painting, how do you observe a model, and how do you paint still life and portraits and things like that. So I still remember that painting on the left corner, which is one of the first notable works in Renaissance, in early Renaissance. And it's truly remarkable for the time, because everything else up until that era had been flat, as in you don't really have a sense of perspective for foreground, background, and middle ground. And in this, you can see a stage, you can see the temple in the background, you can see the lines of the floor, directing your eye towards the vanishing point, and you can see how the poses of the figures in the foreground are arranged so that when you look at it, your eye just keeps going around and it really draws you in. So we had to write essays about stuff like that. So we learned how to visually analyze something, what makes it work, and then express that analysis in a coherent, easy to understand and organized manner. So that's my first training of being an art director, because being an art director, 30% of it is coming up with visual solutions, and then 70% of it is having to explain or having to justify why you made that choice, why you think the solution works and not that. And also talking endlessly, not just to your clients, but also to your team. And it's a very difficult job, because if you fuck up, if the project fucks up, it's on you because you're in charge. So yeah, it's quite demanding. And the other images, this is a Renaissance painting of Madonna, Virgin of the Rocks. The other one is Monet, Haystacks in the Field. So we learned about color theory, the use of complementary color to express light and shade and form and things like that. And this one over here is one of the pieces I did in high school based on a life model. So even though it's not ideal, it's an education system that is geared towards making you excel in exams. So we would have examinations where they time you and you have to produce one of this in 3 hours. So week after week after week, we would practice on drawing portraits and still lives in 3 hours, and choose a medium. In this case, it's pastel. So this is my grounding. This is where I started to become who I am today. And then I went into university where I was introduced to design theory, design basics, foundation in design. So the first image on the left is the theory of composition, creating a dynamic composition by using scale, tension, cropping. The middle one is a work by a famous 80s graphic designer called Shigeo Fukuda. I don't know if any of you know his work. He's truly, truly remarkable. He's a visual illusionist. And my university lecturer was obsessed with him. And we had to do an assignment where we had to pick an everyday object, a series, 4 pieces of everyday objects that expresses the same visual irony that he does. So in this case, you can see how it's an axe, but the handle of it is sprouting a branch, something that's growing, although an axe actually is used to cut down trees. So is that sort of visual illusion that he wanted us to try and express with everyday objects, whether it's scissors or pins or whatever. And I fucking hated that assignment. I did really badly. I think I scored like a D or something horrible. And I remember this teacher was really mean. He used to draw really massive red marks on a color printout that cost me $5.50. I guess in today's money, it's like maybe about 3 or 4 euros. As a student, that's a lot of money, but he didn't care. He just like drew an X on it. But even though I was really frustrated and I really hated it, I think it really helped build the foundation, the synapses in my brain on how to think outside the box and solve problems. And the last one, of course, is color theory. A lot of my work is known for their use of colors, and it's one of those things that you never really stop learning. In fact, right now I'm taking a course in digital painting on art of color and light, and you have your basic, color spectrum or whatever. You never, ever, ever not use this. This would always stay with you forever. So that's my second building block to being an art director. And the next thing I want to talk about is, in terms of my current work, it's this thing about social responsibility or doing the right thing through design. I believe that, whatever it is, whatever the issue is, how you see the world is shaped by little things that you don't even realize. And as designers, we have a lot of power to shape that, to illustrate. This is a project for WaterAid, which is an explainer video that they're going to use to show to governments around developing world to explain their role in how they can help communities in these poor areas, from sanitation, hygiene, this and that. So being a woman, I know that one of the stereotypes of women is that we wear pink, or we're girly. So in this video, if you go to my website, it's there, you will not find, I guarantee you will not find a single female in it wearing pink. And I'm quite proud of that. The hero character is this little girl who's waving her hand. I mean, okay, her dress, her skirt is kind of watermelony, but I have to make sure that she's not all pink, so I give her a blue colored top. And when it comes to things like this, one of the things that I find that in design industry, the conversation is always about, oh, how we came up with this, or how we came up with that as a creative team, and you only credit yourself for making a wonderful solution. But this is an example of how having an awesome client that lets you do good stuff is just as important. So the credit doesn't just lie on you, it's on the client as well. If you look at this image on the right, this teacher is explaining to the class about period hygiene. That's a sanitary pad. That's blood on it, and it's red. And I was determined to make it red. I will not make it a blue liquid. And I was so surprised that it went through. So WaterAid approved that. So credit to them, It's not just me, it's they allowed this to happen. And I'm really glad about that because, hey, women bleed. It's about time we stop using blue liquids, right? Here we are. Thank you. Next case study is Google. I've done a lot of work for Google recently, and they're a funny company. They're kind of like a multi-headed beast. So sometimes you don't quite know who's in charge of what. And sometimes they come to you last minute and they want something done. In this case, they want 4 animations done in 2 weeks. Each animation is about 1.5 minutes, and there's a team of illustrators waiting for assets, and I have to create characters based on an existing campaign that they've done previously, and hand it over to the animators, get the characters signed off, all in at the same time. So there's no real neat pipeline. First you get the characters signed off, and then you prep the assets, give it to the animators. It's all just like, we just gotta go, just gotta go. So again, with this, I made sure, again, that the female characters don't only wear pink. Also, I'm trying to show diversity, like this couple. The brief doesn't say anything. The brief doesn't say, please make sure it's diverse. But through the 3 or 4 scenarios that I have to illustrate, I have to make sure, I want to make sure that I'm representing as many different races and demographics and colors and ways of dressing and all that sort of stuff as much as possible. So in the end, I'm quite glad that they ended up with this version here, the image you see on bottom left, because it's free of pink. Again, I have to credit the client on this. At first, they wanted this scenario to be pink, but then they said, no, that's too stereotypical. Let's go with the green option, which is what we ended up with. So that's Google. This is another Google project. Again, about this thing about doing the right thing through design is to try and challenge some stereotypes. So this is actually, the first image here of the lineup of the girls is now available online. You can see that. But the rest of them, please don't take photos of them. Please don't tweet them. This is still very, very highly confidential. You guys are the first people to see it. I'm not allowed to show this online yet, but I've been given permission to show it in this presentation. And I'm using this as an illustration because chefs, top left image, the scenario is a chef and a food blogger. A food blogger is interviewing the chef. And again, I have to credit Google as well as the creative director I work with. He's a fantastic guy who was really open to me pushing my agenda in terms of subverting stereotypes. You don't see a lot of female chefs out there. You don't see a lot of black female chefs. So I want to make sure that she's both. And that went through, that got approved. The woman in the middle, she's a furniture maker. She's an artisan furniture maker. Again, the brief said a man, but I said, can we make it a woman? Why can't a woman be an artisan furniture maker? And the creative director, Ariel, said, yes, let's make her a woman. This one, the color scheme was dictated that it has to be pink. The scenario is this man using his Google services to call a plumber, and we know that the phone has to be pink. So instead of a woman, I proposed a man using a pink phone. Why not, right? And in other frames that I don't have here, he's actually also wearing a pink tie. This one over here, the story is that Google tries to engage with people who speaks English. If you're an English speaking business, you want to engage with customers who speak English. So people with the speech bubbles are people who speak English. Again, I try to challenge the stereotype. The people that speak English are not the white people. There's a black woman and an Asian guy. And yeah, again, that went through. So, I try to do what I can with these examples. And again, the credit lies with Google as well as with the creative director for letting me challenge these things. But it's really, really important. I don't know yet how many people would see this. I don't know yet if Google is going to use this. But as far as I'm concerned, it's delivered, it's done, and I've done my part to try and change things for the better, just a little bit at a time. The next segment is about the hard stuff. We know that this industry is male-dominated, and we know that there's all kinds of problems and biases that arise from that. And to deny that is to be willfully ignorant, I think. And as a minority, I experience things that, a lot of people don't. But again, the message that I'm trying to say here is that I think it's really important when you are privileged to try and acknowledge and hear things that have come up from people who say that they've experienced discrimination. If you've heard this thing about the invisible backpack of privilege, it's that people with privilege don't realize that they are privileged, and that's the irony of the thing. So, first of all, as a woman, anybody here listens to the Collective podcast? Yes? No? Okay. This is the guest list. I think right now it's 89 on this screen grab, but right now they've hit 100. 4 women. Only 4 women represented. Me and a few other women have written to them and say, here are some other women that you can include in your podcast. They are very talented. Please talk to them. We want to hear their stories. We haven't seen the result yet. I don't know if it could be because of many things, but if you are a woman and people like them approach you to speak, to do a public engagement, it's partly why I'm here. Say yes. Stand up. You're doing it not just for yourself, but for everyone, because gender bias is a self-perpetuating thing. You don't see a lot of women in this industry because it's quite intimidating to come into an industry that is dominated by the other sex. And the less women come in, the less women would be in positions to be at the top, and then and it just keeps going on and on and on. And so, I think we women, we don't ask for you to pity us. We don't ask for you to feature us when our work is mediocre. But I think this argument that I hear time and time again when I try and suggest more women or try and suggest more diversity in a design showcase, i.e., it's not about the sex or it's not about the race. It's not about the whatever it is, but it's about the work. That is a very, very misleading myth. Because you can only say that if the playing field is level, but it is not. If you're poor, if you're growing up from a poor background, the odds are stacked against you. More likely than not, you're going to choose another profession rather than a creative one because you need to make money. You've been raised in a very difficult environment that makes you want to, make sure that you never end up poor on the street. It's a lot riskier for someone that has nothing to gamble their life or the years of their life on a creative venture that might not pay off. So that's one thing that is definitely real out there. And I think the level, the design field is biased against women, people with low income, and people of color. And I think the best thing we can do is that if you're in a position of privilege and someone says, hey, life is hard for us, the best thing you can do is to acknowledge that and to have the humility that you might have a bias or two that you don't realize. So if you listen to the Collective podcast, please write to them and suggest talented, amazing women or people of color or people of diverse background that you want them to speak to. And if you are a woman, if they approach you, please say yes and, stand up and talk. This is one of those things that unfortunately happened in my career. For this project, I was the designated art director and illustrator. And as you can see, it has a very strong color scheme because this is the corporate colors of the client, which is Real Estate Australia. And we were in a creative meeting, and the agency guy, myself, and two other guys who are going to do the animation were discussing workflow. As usual, time is tight, budget's tight, turnaround is tight. So I was trying to establish to the agency how important it is to get the clients to lock off color schemes and character design before we proceed to animation. We don't want to keep changing things like the color scheme in animation because even if you just change the background, it's going to affect everything else because everything has to be considered because of how tricky the color scheme is. And one of the motion designers said to me, I don't know how it works in graphic design, but in motion graphics, we can keep changing the color until the last minute. And this is the hard thing about sexism, is that it's so insidious, it's so difficult to point out, because sometimes you don't know whether someone says that because they think you're a graphic designer, you don't know what you're doing in motion, or do they have less faith in you because you're a woman? I don't know. But this definitely happened, and it was one of those frustrating moments in my career. This thing, again, is not about the gender, it's about the work. 90% of showcase curators out there would say this when I suggest, like I said before. So these are just some of the things that I've tried to do to help out a little. I wrote this article for Motionographer about survival tips for women in motion design, and it actually started a very interesting thread. If you haven't read it yet, you should, because there's some really, really interesting ideas that other women have contributed, such as negotiate pay like a gangster. And my favorite contribution is do not use weak language. If you want to find out about that, it's online. And this is a blog piece that I wrote with a few other women to respond to this inaccurate myth that it's not about the gender, it's about the work. And this one is a Facebook group created for female animators and motion designers. It's a safe environment where you can share, talk about strategies, or just basically connect with each other and support each other. This is another myth. This thing about awards and design showcases, oftentimes you say, when we try to suggest someone to be a speaker or someone to be featured in a certain showcase, they're like, yeah, but the work is really lacking that star factor. And this woman, a friend of mine, Victoria Nice, that I met through a motion design chat group, she said, possibly, but also, is it because the work is no good, or is it because it doesn't meet your taste preferences? So I want to encourage you, I mean, whether you're a man or a woman, when you try and submit your work for a certain showcase or award show or whatever, just be aware that it's people who select your work, people who award these things, who award prizes and awards, are just like you and me. They're just a selection of people, and their taste is subjective, just like everyone's taste is subjective. So just because you don't win an award, just because you don't get selected for something, it's not a reflection on your talent. And this is something that I think doesn't get talked about enough in our industry. Again, this is one of those things where you see that all the speakers are men in this Creative Cloud events. And in the banner selected by Adobe, again, all men. I've submitted both to a really funny blog, actually, called, what is it called? Congratulations, you have an all-male speaker, where they will put a stamp of David Hasselhoff with his thumbs up on the blog. It's quite depressing, actually, once you start to go through it. There's all kinds of conferences, medical, scientific, engineering, design, whatever, all male speakers. Sad. So that's my political agenda slash social justice warrior bit done. Coming back to a personal note, this is looking ahead. This is some things that I'm doing right now. I'm taking this Art of Color and Light. It's an online course because I just feel like I'm not really there yet when it comes to these things, because I abandoned the painting and the drawing when I started graphic design. I didn't pick it up until about 7 or 8 years ago, and I really want to get back into that. And this is another thing that a fellow illustrator inspired me to do, is that you never stop learning, and even though it's hard and difficult and freelance work and life commitment and all that sort of stuff, I think we should all try and make time for things that will always improve our skills, because you never really stop improving until your last day. Time for hobbies. This is my 2 cats. A friend of mine said, you have to put your 2 cats in it, because really they're just as important to me, to my life, to me as a person, as the paid work. These things are things that keep me going, when life is hard and work is stressful. I can't count the number of times when I've just had a really horrible call from a client and I just get up, pick myself up and have a cuddle with them, and animals, pets, amazing things. Watercolor, I'm just gotta keep doing that because it's one of those things that really calms me down, and it makes me realize that it's important to express myself through art and to use art to do all kinds of things, or not just to get money or to fulfill my creative spirit, whatever that means, but also to get over bad things. Like, I have depression, I have anxiety issues, and yeah, I take medication, but these things also really help, just getting in there and just distancing yourself away from the computers and finding different ways of expressing yourself through different things. So yeah, these are some of the things that I do on the side. Another thing that I think is also important for all of us is friendship and collaboration with very talented people out there and like-minded artists. So these 2 guys, I met them through stalking them on Facebook because I saw their first film, which is called Something Left, Something Taken. They're called Tiny Inventions. You should check out their work. They're really amazing. And there's something really funny about that first film that made me write to them. It's just a really hilarious film. So it made me write to them, and some reason she started writing, the lady, Rue, she started writing back to me, I started writing back to her, and we just kind of, over the years, we formed this friendship. And I have a lot of admiration for them because they're technical whiz. They do a lot of things with miniatures, but they also create puppets, and they photograph those puppets on different angles to create very complicated After Effects character rigs, really technical stuff that I have no idea how to pull off. And again, they're really inspiring because they keep doing this for no money. They keep doing these things because they just want to make short films, and they sort of try and get by teaching or whatever, but it's really refreshing to have a friend who is just as passionate about their work as you are, and we keep each other motivated through horrible times. And I want to share one thing actually that she told me. One time I asked her, do you have any advice? How do you go through a period of dry spell, those 3 months or 2 months when you don't have a single work lined up and you try and do personal work, but you feel like a failure, am I any good? Is anyone going to remember me when I die? Do I mean anything? What am I doing? She said, when you have those dark periods, is to just get up and do a happy dance. Positive energy dance is what she calls it. And as daggy as it is, it really works. I personally like to turn up the music, play some really daggy 80s tune, and just dance my ass off. And usually after that, I feel slightly better, and then I can go on with my day. And the next person here is, he's still my favorite collaborator, because I designed a lot of characters, and I work with a lot of animators all around the world. There's something about what Cameron does. His name is Cameron Go. He has a small animation studio in Melbourne called Dirty Puppet. There's something about what he does that somehow makes those characters have a life of their own. It's quite unique. I haven't really come across it anywhere else, and I've worked with different people all across the globe, and there's just something really good about this collaboration. He's a creative director, and he would take briefs and he would tell me what I need to do to make the character and what sort of design he wants, and he finds it really easy because we just connect on that level. And if you look on my website, there is an animation that he's done, which is this fox over here. And he's one of those people that again, is really inspiring and really keeps me going, because I live for the joy of making something with him. I mean, awards or no, money or no, fuck all that. I mean, if you are in a position where you can collaborate with someone who really, really matches you on that wavelength, that is really to die for. And I hope that everyone at least has one of those people in their lives. And last thing, as a closing statement, I know life is hard. Everyone's going to go home tonight, and tomorrow is another day, another battle, another client, another call, another creative shit to solve. But please spare a moment or two to give a shit on things that matters just as much, whatever it is, whether it's your family, your loved one, the planet, or whatever it is. Find those things and fit them into your life. Because, as Angel said, if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Yay, thanks Lilian, and thanks everyone for being here. This was Fuzzy Marsh at Urban Spree for the first time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Woo! Yeah, stick around, drink some beer or whatever. And next time is going to be the 1st of December this year. It's going to be the next Fuzzy Marsh. So put it in your calendars, and see you then. Thank you. Take care.